My name is Zena Krantz. I'm 31 years old. And this is the story of how I was erased by my own family, only to return and leave them speechless at my father's funeral. It started in the kind of household where love had a name, and that name was Madison. My older sister. The golden child. The favorite. If Madison was the sun, then I was the shadow cast behind her brilliance. And growing up, I learned quickly that in our home, attention wasn't something given freely. It was earned, fought for. And most of the time it was already spoken for before I even entered the room. I remember the night it became clear. I was 12. It was the school science fair, and I had built a working model of a self-sustaining eco-house, complete with solar panels, water recycling, and a little 3D printed garden that turned in the light. I had poured every sleepless night into that project, staying up with a flashlight and super glue while my classmates used ready-made kits. When they called my name for first prize, my heart soared. For the first time I thought, maybe they'll see me. I came home clutching my certificate and the small gold medal, practically running inside. But Madison was already in the living room, twirling with joy as she talked about her school's dress rehearsal. She had just performed a solo in the upcoming dance show. My mom beamed. "You have such an artistic gift," she gushed, ruffling Madison's hair. Waited. I stood there in the doorway, medal shaking slightly in my hand. "I won first place at the science fair," I said quietly. My mom barely glanced at it. "That's nice, honey. Was the competition hard?" That was it. My dad didn't even look up from his newspaper. That was the first of many nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what was so wrong with me that they couldn't even pretend to care. Over the years I stopped trying. I buried myself in books. I graduated early, got scholarships, made it through college with honors. But nothing I did ever earned more than a half-hearted good job, if they remembered at all. Meanwhile, Madison was treated like royalty for posting dance videos online and going through 5 different majors in 6 years. Then I met Nathan. He was the first person who looked at me like I wasn't invisible. The first man who remembered my favorite tea, who noticed when I wore a new shade of lip gloss, who read my dream journal and said it made him feel closer to me. Fell hard. It wasn't fast, but it was deep. With Nathan, I thought I had finally escaped my sister's shadow. Until the night I brought him home for dinner. My parents acted like it was a diplomatic visit from a foreign prince. The table was set with the fine china they hadn't used in years. My dad opened the expensive wine. But the performance wasn't for me. It was for Madison. She floated into the room in a silk blouse and red lipstick, acting surprised to see him even though I'd told her a week ago he was coming. Her charm was turned on full force. Compliments, giggles, touching his arm when she laughed. I knew the signs. Madison didn't flirt. She claimed things. And I saw the moment she set her sights on Nathan like he was her next prize. He didn't see it at first. She was subtle. But by the second course I could tell. He laughed a little too much at her jokes. His eyes lingered a little too long. And that night when I went to clean up in the kitchen, I found her with her hand on his arm, her voice lowered, laughing at something he had said. "Madison," I said through clenched teeth. "What are you doing?" She tilted her head, that innocent look she had perfected. "Relax, Zena. We're just talking." 3 weeks later he broke up with me. His voice trembled when he said the words I'll never forget. "I think I have feelings for Madison." The betrayal split me open. But it was the silence from my parents that finally killed something inside me. "Madison didn't steal anyone," my mother said, like I was being dramatic. "If Nathan really loved you, he wouldn't have left," my dad muttered behind his newspaper. That night, I packed a single suitcase, left a note on the kitchen counter, and vanished. I moved into a small apartment in a gritty part of the city. I found a job waiting tables at a diner that never slept. I enrolled in night classes at the community college. And I taught myself not to care. Not about Madison. Not about Nathan. And definitely not about the people who raised me. But pain has a way of shaping us. And somewhere in that pain I found something else. Found a camera. It had been buried in a thrift store bin, $12 with a scratched lens. I started taking photos late at night after my shift. Abandoned buildings, empty train stations, broken neon signs. Things people ignored. Things that somehow reminded me of myself. One night in the park, a man in a wrinkled suit and mismatched socks asked if I was a professional. I laughed. Just for fun. He studied the photo on my screen and said, "I'm Daniel, creative director for an art magazine. I think you have something special." That was the first time someone outside of Nathan or Lydia told me I had a gift. He offered me a small gig, just a spread for a feature on Urban Decay. But when the issue came out, my name was printed beneath a title that made me cry. The beauty in what's left behind. From there everything changed. I didn't tell my family. I didn't want them to know. I wasn't doing this for them. But years later Lydia called. "Zena. It's Madison. Her marriage is falling apart. They're in debt. Nathan's miserable. It's all coming undone." I listened in silence. Not because I cared, but because part of me had waited a lifetime to hear it. Then came the second call. "Zena. Your father died." I didn't feel sadness. Just a strange, hollow finality. Daniel asked if I wanted to go to the funeral. "Only if you want closure," he said. I did. But I wasn't prepared for what would happen next. I hadn't seen Madison in nearly 7 years. Not since the night Nathan walked out of my apartment with her name on his lips and my heart in pieces. And now here I was, standing at the steps of my childhood church, wearing a plain black dress, no makeup, my hair pulled back in a low bun. I didn't come to impress anyone. Came to close a chapter. But I also didn't come alone. Daniel stood next to me, tall and calm in his tailored suit. His hand resting gently on the small of my back. He didn't need to say a word. His presence was enough. He was my anchor. And as we walked through those double doors, every pair of eyes turned toward me. It was like being 15 again, walking into the living room to find my family too busy with Madison's drama to notice I had won another award. But this time they looked. Really looked. My mother's eyes widened as she clutched her black clutch purse tighter. My Aunt Linda whispered something and leaned closer. Lydia gave me a small, knowing nod. Then, saw her. Madison. She looked flawless, of course. Her golden hair fell in effortless curls. Her black dress hugged her figure like it had been custom-fitted that morning. But there was something else now, an edge of desperation in her eyes. Her skin was a little duller. The smile she offered me didn't quite reach her eyes. "Well," she said as I approached. Her voice just loud enough for everyone in the front pew to hear. "I didn't think you'd show your face." I smiled back, but there was no warmth in it. Neither did I. And then Daniel stepped forward. Her eyes darted to him. She blinked. "Who's this?" she asked, her tone shifting into something sickly sweet and curious. "This," I said, taking Daniel's hand, "is the man who believed in me when no one else did." I could almost hear her jaw tighten. "You must be Madison," Daniel said, extending a hand. "Zena's told me so much." She shook it, grudgingly. Nathan was sitting on the other side of the aisle. He looked old. Not physically but spiritually. Like someone had wrung the color and confidence out of him. His suit was wrinkled at the elbows. His hair a little thinner. When he caught sight of me, his mouth opened slightly, like he didn't know whether to greet me or apologize. When he saw Daniel, his face fell. Madison watched all of this like a cat in a cornered cage. The funeral began. The priest droned on about love, memory, legacy. I didn't hear most of it. My mind drifted to the man in the casket. My father. The man who once told me I was too intense when I cried after a teacher unfairly failed me. The man who praised Madison for lighting up a room while telling me I should smile more. I didn't cry. Not out of spite, but because I had done my grieving years ago, when I left and accepted I never truly had a father to begin with. After the ceremony, people mingled outside the church steps, sipping coffee and offering condolences. Madison stood in the center of the circle, holding court like always, with tears carefully dabbed just beneath her lashes, perfectly smudged for effect. I was walking past her when she reached out. Zena. Wait. Turn slowly. She gave a dry laugh. You don't even say hello anymore. I didn't realize you earned one, I replied, calm as a lake. Daniel stood a few feet back, watching carefully. Her eyes flicked toward him, then back to me. What do you do now? I heard, photography. Smiled. That's right. I have 2 published books. My 3rd is in pre-order. And my gallery just signed an exclusive exhibit in Paris. Her smile faltered. I didn't know you were into that kind of lifestyle, she said, and I could tell she meant it as a jab. You mean success. I tilted my head. It's not for everyone. Nathan walked up then, his face pale. Zena. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Madison's head whipped toward him so fast I thought she might snap her neck. Nathan, she hissed. This isn't the time. No, Madison, he said, and I saw something flicker in him. A piece of the man he used to be, before she hollowed him out. It is the time. I was wrong. About everything. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Because right then, for the first time in my life, Madison was the one looking like the lesser sister. Later that day, at the quiet family luncheon in the church hall, she tried one last time. She stood to give a speech. Classic Madison. Dramatic pauses, trembling hands, voice cracking just so. She spoke of our father, of how he had always believed in us equally, and always wanted his daughters to be close. People nodded along. Most didn't know better. Then she looked right at me and said, and I just wish we could let go of past misunderstandings and remember we're still family. My mother beamed like she'd coached the entire thing. But I stood, and the room went still. I'm glad you said that, Madison, I said, projecting my voice. Because if we're being honest, I think it's time I say something too. My hands didn't shake. For years I tried to be enough. I tried to matter. And no one noticed. Not when I won awards, not when I got scholarships, not when I cried myself to sleep every night after you took the one person I ever loved. But I'm not here to fight anymore. I'm here to say, I made it without you. I looked at my mother. Her lips were pressed thin. I made it without any of you. I took Daniel's hand. I found someone who sees me. I built something from the ashes of what you all left me with. And I don't need a seat at your table anymore. I built my own. The silence was thunderous. Then Lydia clapped. Others followed. Madison sat down slowly, her face pale. Her perfect world was crumbling, and there wasn't a thing she could do about it. I turned to Daniel. Let's go. And this time when I walked out I didn't look back. 3 weeks passed after the funeral. I thought that would be the end of it. I had said what I needed to say. I had stood in front of everyone and declared that I was no longer the forgotten daughter. No longer the shadow. And then I walked away. For good. Or so I believed. But the past never lets go that easily. It was a rainy Thursday afternoon. I was in my studio, reviewing proofs for the Paris exhibit. The gallery was preparing a spotlight piece featuring my black and white portraits, an intimate look at the unnoticed moments of city life. Faces in shadows. Children behind dusty windows. Forgotten shoes hanging on power lines. They weren't just photographs. They were reflections of who I used to be. Who I refused to be ever again. That's when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something, maybe curiosity, maybe habit, made me swipe. Hello. There was a pause. Then a voice I hadn't heard in nearly a decade. Zena. It's Mom. My entire body went still. Her voice wasn't the usual clipped, controlled tone I remembered. Sounded smaller. Hesitant. I didn't say anything. I know I shouldn't be calling, she said quickly, as if racing to say it before I could hang up. But I needed to talk to you. I stared at the rain streaking the windows. Why now? A long breath. Because things with Madison. They've gotten worse. I laughed. A low, bitter sound. And that has what to do with me. I just thought you'd want to know. No, I replied calmly. You thought I'd care enough to come rescue her. Again. She's still your sister. No, she's your project. Your masterpiece. Pause. She made her choices. So did I. There was a moment of silence so heavy it felt like the air itself had thickened. She's drowning, Zena. Financially. Emotionally. Nathan left last week. Moved out. She's pretending everything's fine, but it's not. I found her crying in the bathroom yesterday. Closed my eyes. I'm sorry she's hurting. But where was this concern when I was crying in my bedroom every night, wondering why I wasn't good enough for my own parents? Zena, please. You never asked about me. Never looked at me the way you looked at her. And now that she's falling apart, suddenly I matter again. No. I was wrong, my mother said quietly. I didn't know how to be a mother to both of you. I saw how bright Madison shined and I just followed the light. I opened my mouth to speak but stopped, because part of me had waited my entire life to hear her say that. And now that she had, it felt hollow. Zena, she said again, voice trembling. I know I failed you, but I see you now. Really do. I saw your name in the magazine last week. Photos. The review. I read every word. I wanted that to matter. But it didn't. Not in the way she hoped. I've already forgiven you, I said softly. But I won't forget. And I won't go back. I understand, she whispered. I just wanted you to hear it from me. When the call ended, I sat for a long time staring at the screen. Daniel came in quietly. Everything okay? I nodded slowly. Yeah, I finally got the apology I used to dream about. And I realized I don't need it anymore. That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, opened the window, and let the city hum around me. I thought about all the years I spent trying to be seen. All the times I twisted myself into 1,000 shapes just to earn a smile. But now I had created something real. Something mine. And that mattered more than any belated apology ever could. A few days later, an envelope arrived. No return address. My name written in slanted cursive I recognized instantly. Inside was a letter. From my mother. Her words were careful, raw in a way I'd never seen before. Zena, I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted to put in writing what I never said when it mattered. You were always so strong even when I failed to see it. I let myself believe that Madison needed me more. And in doing so, I lost you. Not a day goes by where I don't wish I had done better. But I am proud of you now. Truly. Not just because of your success, but because you walked through fire and didn't let it break you. If someday you ever want to talk, I'll be here. But if not, I'll understand. With all my regrets. Mom. I didn't cry. I folded the letter and placed it in the back of my drawer, not as an invitation, but as a marker. Page turned. A chapter closed. And then I moved forward. The next few months were the busiest of my life. The Paris exhibit launched to glowing reviews. I was invited to speak at a creative summit in Berlin. My second book, Unseen: The People in Between, became a bestseller. And Daniel, my rock, was by my side every step of the way. But one thing I didn't expect was Madison. She showed up at the New York gallery opening. Unannounced. She looked thinner, tired. Her makeup carefully done but unable to hide the cracks. She waited until the crowd thinned before approaching me. Zena, she said softly. I raised an eyebrow. You're brave to come here. She looked down. I didn't come to fight. I came to apologize. I said nothing. I lost everything, she said quietly. Nathan's gone. The house is in foreclosure. I'm broke. And for the first time in my life, no one is telling me I'm special. I looked at her, not with pity but with clarity. And now you realize what it felt like to be me. She nodded, her eyes filling. I thought I was better than you. I really did. But now, you see, you were always stronger. You just didn't need the spotlight. I still don't, I said. Because I learned how to shine without it. She opened her mouth again, then closed it. She didn't ask for help. She didn't beg. She just stood there, quiet and unsure. And for once, I was the one who walked away first. 6 weeks after Madison's surprise appearance at my gallery, I found myself 3,700 miles away, standing beneath the vaulted ceilings of a Parisian exhibition hall, surrounded by critics, collectors, and journalists. My photography collection, unseen, had become more than an art series. It was a conversation, mirror, a revolution in quiet truth. And somehow I had become the face of it. Flashes lit up the space. My name was on banners. I was being called a visionary, a voice for the invisible. It felt surreal, but not because I didn't believe I'd earned it. I bled for it. But because there was a time I would have traded all of it just to hear my mother say, "I'm proud of you." Now I didn't need it. Daniel stood beside me in a tailored navy suit, his fingers laced with mine. He beamed with pride, not the empty kind my family handed Madison like candy, but real pride, earned, grounded, honest. After the gala ended, we walked along the Seine, quiet except for the lapping water and distant sounds of music. Paris always made me feel small and powerful at the same time. "You did it," he whispered, wrapping his arm around me. "No," I corrected gently. "We did it." That night, I slept with the windows open, the cool night air brushing against my skin like forgiveness. I was finally free, or so I thought, because the next morning Lydia called. I almost didn't answer. Time difference, the mental distance. I had been so careful about what from my past I allowed back in. But Lydia was different. She had always seen me, even when no one else did. "Zena," she said, her voice tight. "I need to tell you something." My stomach turned. "What is it?" "It's about your dad," she said. "About the will." Froze. "I wasn't going to say anything," she continued. "But after the way Madison's been acting, I thought you deserved to know. Your name, Zena, it was in the original version of the will. He left you something significant." I stared at the white ceiling of the hotel suite, the air thick around me. What changed? 2 years ago, Madison convinced him to rewrite it. Said it would simplify things. He was already sick. Vulnerable. My jaw clenched. Simplify things. She told him you had cut yourself off. That you didn't care about the family. That you wouldn't want anything. And he agreed. Or maybe he just didn't argue. I felt the heat crawl up my neck. What did he take from me? Lydia hesitated. The West River property. I stopped breathing for a second. That cabin. That land. It wasn't just property. It was the one place my father ever took me alone. Just the two of us. When I was 10. A weekend without Madison. He showed me how to skip rocks. Let me hold his hand without pulling away. It was the only memory I had of him that didn't end in disappointment. I had always assumed it had been sold. But it hadn't. It had been passed down. To Madison. "She's planning to sell it," Lydia said. "To some development firm. She needs the money. Badly." A silence stretched between us, louder than the ringing in my ears. "Thank you for telling me," I whispered. That night I didn't sleep. Not because of rage, but something worse. Grief. Not for the property. Not even for the inheritance. But for what it confirmed. They had never intended to make space for me. Even in death. I returned to New York a week later. The exhibit was still running. My inbox flooded with offers and requests. But my mind was somewhere else. I couldn't stop thinking about that land. That memory. That weekend when, for 48 hours, I believed my father might love me. Daniel saw it on my face. He didn't ask. He just said, "Do we need to take a drive?" We did. The cabin was 3 hours upstate, tucked between pine trees and an abandoned dirt road. When we arrived, the sign on the gate confirmed it. Private property, development project, future site of Timberline Estates. Made me sick. The land had been untouched since my childhood. It still smelled like pine and wet bark. The swing we hung on the old oak tree had rotted, but the beam still stood. I walked the path in silence, remembering his voice as he said, "This one's just for us, kiddo." Now it was hers, and she was going to bulldoze it. Well, not this time. I called my attorney the next day. I had never fought for anything my father left behind, because he never left anything to me. But now I had the means, the influence, the spotlight. We filed a formal contest of the will, on the grounds of undue influence and fraud. The West River property had been part of a documented trust with stipulations about who could inherit and under what terms. And we had records, emails, originals. Even Lydia testified that my name had been on the first draft, handwritten by my father himself. Madison, of course, lost it. She called me screaming, spitting venom. "You don't even care about this family. You left. You abandoned all of us." I didn't raise my voice. No. I stopped begging to be included in a family that treated me like trash. "You're doing this to hurt me." "No," I said quietly. "I'm doing this to remember the one time he saw me. And to make sure you don't erase it." The media caught wind. Not from me, but from someone inside her circle, no doubt looking to cash in on the drama. The headline ran, "Gallery Darling Inn will dispute with sister over childhood estate. Family secrets surface." And suddenly, all eyes were on her. Not in admiration but scrutiny. Madison, the golden girl, exposed. People dug. Found out about the debt. The lavish lifestyle. The lies. Sponsors dropped her. Her little influencer brand crumbled. And when the judge ruled in my favor 3 weeks later, returning full ownership of the cabin to me, she didn't even show up to court. I visited the land one more time that fall. The leaves had turned. The wind was soft. I stood by the swing and whispered, "This was mine all along." The court ruling made headlines across multiple outlets, not because of the value of the land, but because of the story behind it. A forgotten daughter reclaiming her father's legacy. A golden girl sister losing everything in the public eye. The media loves symmetry, and our family was now their favorite tragedy. But I wasn't interested in revenge through headlines. I was interested in peace. And for a little while I had it. The West River property was officially mine again. I didn't rush to change it. I didn't bulldoze anything. I went back one weekend with Daniel, and we camped outside under the stars. No phones, no press. Just us, a fire pit, and the sound of wind between trees. "I used to dream about this place when I was little," I told him as I traced my fingers over the bark of the old oak. "In every version of the dream, I was enough." "You always were," he said. But even with that peace, a question remained. One that wouldn't let go. If my father had written my name into that will, what changed him so easily? Was it really just Madison manipulating him while he was sick? Or had he doubted me in the end? I didn't expect the answer to come at my next exhibition. It was a smaller showing, held in a restored warehouse in Brooklyn. The collection was called The Line Between. Each photograph depicted contrast, light and shadow, rich and poor, past and present. I had included one personal piece for the first time. A photo of the cabin's gate, slightly ajar, with sunlight cutting through the trees. It hung in the center of the room. The opening night was packed. Critics mingled with students. Artists leaned against walls, wine in hand. Daniel spoke with the curator. And I moved from guest to guest, smiling, answering questions, pretending not to feel like my ribs were made of glass. Then I saw him. He was older, balding, his posture curved slightly from age, but I knew that face. He had been my father's attorney, Mr. Langston. He approached with a small, careful smile. "Zena," he said, "I wasn't sure if you'd recognize me." I did. "What are you doing here?" I asked, unsure whether to be alarmed or curious. "I read about your work." "I read about the court case." He paused. "There's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you before your father passed." I stiffened. "Go on." He took out a folded letter from his coat pocket. Your father wrote this a few days before he died. He asked me to deliver it. Only if things went badly between you and Madison. I stared at the paper. You held on to this for months. He looked ashamed. I didn't think it would help. But now. Maybe it will. Took the letter. My name was written on the front, in my father's unmistakable handwriting. Firm. Precise. A little slanted to the left. Later that night, after everyone had left and the gallery was still echoing with ghost conversations, I sat on the floor and opened the envelope. Zena, if you're reading this, then something went wrong. I don't know what Madison has told you. I don't know what you believe. But I want you to hear this from me directly, while I still have clarity left in my head. I always saw you. I just didn't know how to be your father. I understood Madison, her charm, her neediness. It made sense to me. You were different. Quiet. Strong. It scared me because I didn't know how to love something I didn't understand. But that cabin, I gave it to you because I wanted you to remember one thing from me that was pure. Something untouched by all the mistakes I made. Madison said you wouldn't want it. That you wouldn't come back. And I believed her. I shouldn't have. Sorry. I know I failed you. And I can't undo that. But I hope you find your light, Zena. You never needed ours. Ed. I didn't cry. I thought I might. But instead, I folded the letter gently, and placed it inside the inner pocket of my coat. He hadn't redeemed himself. He hadn't been brave enough to say it when it counted. But he had said it. That had to be enough. The next day, I visited the cabin again. This time alone. I walked the same trail I had as a child, camera in hand. I took photos of the leaves, of the swing rope, of the porch step that creaked slightly under my weight. And then I found the carving. Half hidden beneath ivy on the side of the oak tree, where we once tied the swing, was a faint set of letters. I ran my fingers across it. He had carved it the year we went together. I must have missed it back then. Or maybe I just hadn't believed I was worth remembering. That night, I built a small fire by the lake's edge and placed a photo of the cabin on the flame, watching the edges curl and blacken. Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye to the version of you I kept chasing. When I returned to the city, something had changed in me. Not closure exactly, but alignment. I started writing again, essays this time. Personal reflections. A magazine published my piece. What we inherit that isn't ours. It went viral within days. People reached out. Strangers, artists, women who said they had lived their lives in the shadows of golden siblings, or absent fathers, or entire families that had decided they were too much or not enough. And suddenly my story wasn't just mine. It was a mirror for hundreds of others. The invitation came in a thick envelope, embossed in gold, and delivered by courier to my studio. I opened it cautiously, assuming it was another gallery event or press opportunity, but what I found made me sit down. The Carnegie Foundation for Women in the Arts. Honoring Zena Krantz. Lifetime Achievement in Creative Advocacy. My hands trembled. The award was a big deal, historic even. Past recipients were icons. It wasn't just about artistic skill. It was about using art to change lives, to challenge silence, to tell stories no one else dared to tell. It meant that everything I had endured, every scar, every lonely night, every tear I buried behind a lens, had built something that mattered. Daniel wrapped his arms around me the moment I told him. You didn't just step out of their shadow, Zena. You became the light. But the glow didn't last long. Because a week later Lydia called again. And this time her voice was grave. Zena, she said. It's Madison. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. The pause said it all. She's in a bad place. I wouldn't call if it wasn't serious. I'm not responsible for saving her. I know. But she asked for you. Personally. That made me pause. Why? She didn't say. Just. She looked awful. I think she's finally realizing the price of everything she chased. That evening, against every part of my better judgment, I drove to her apartment. It wasn't the penthouse she used to flaunt online. This place was small, with peeling paint on the door and no doorman in sight. I knocked twice. She opened it slowly. I barely recognized her. Her hair was unwashed, her cheekbones sharp from weight loss. She wore a hoodie and loose sweatpants, her once polished nails chipped and bitten down. "Zena," she whispered, as if she wasn't sure I was real. "Madison." She stepped aside. Her apartment was nearly empty. A mattress on the floor. Unopened bills. A single cup in the sink. How did it come to this? I asked, not out of pity but curiosity. She shrugged. When Nathan left, everything unraveled. The followers faded. The sponsors pulled out. I thought I could hustle my way back up, but I've never had to fight for anything. Not really. I stayed silent. She motioned to the small couch. "Sit. Please." Sat. There was a long pause. The air felt like glass between us. Fragile, tense. "I was jealous of you," she said finally. I looked up, startled. "I always was," she continued. "Not because of what you had, but because you didn't need what I did. I needed the attention, the praise. I lived off it. But you were steady. You created things. You had a soul." I laughed bitterly. "A soul you stepped on every chance you got." "I know," she said, tears in her eyes. "And I deserve everything I lost." Silence. Then she looked at me, truly looked at me, and said, "There's something else." My stomach tightened. "What now?" "It wasn't just the will," she said softly. "I lied to him. I told him you said you didn't want anything. That you hated him." The room spun. "What?" "I was afraid. You were finally becoming something and I was losing control. So I twisted his words. I fed his fears. I made sure you were cut out of everything. Rage. Not fire-hot but cold. Steady. Ancient. You stole my last chance to be seen by him." She nodded, tears streaming down. "Yes. And now you want what? Absolution?" "No," she whispered. "Just for you to know I'm sorry." I stood up. Madison reached out, but I stepped back. "I don't forgive you," I said. "But I accept that you're broken. I just won't carry your pieces anymore." She broke then. A raw, guttural sob that shook her frame. And I left. That night, I sat with Daniel on the roof of our apartment. The city lights stretched beneath us. I told him everything. "Do you regret going?" he asked. "No," I said. "Because now I know the truth. And it's worse than I imagined, but it also freed me." He kissed my forehead. "You've built a life so far beyond them." "I know," I said. "But sometimes you still want the ones who hurt you to see it, to really see it." And that's when I made a decision. At the Carnegie Foundation ceremony during the keynote speech, I would speak directly to that shadow I had carried for so long. The night arrived. Flashbulbs popped as I walked the red carpet. My dress was midnight blue, elegant, with an embroidered silver line down the side, symbolizing a crack turned into art. I stepped onto the stage as they called my name. Applause thundered. I took the microphone, steadied my breath, and spoke. "My name is Zena Krantz. And for most of my life, I lived unseen." The room quieted. I was the daughter no one noticed, the sister no one celebrated. I grew up in the shadow of someone else's spotlight. And I thought that meant I had no light of my own. Hush. But I was wrong. We all carry a light. Some of us are just forced to protect it longer, until the world is ready to see it. I made peace with the silence. I turned it into art. Into truth. People leaned forward in their seats. And to anyone who has ever been made to feel like a ghost in their own story, know this. You are not invisible. You are not small. You are not too much or not enough. You are more. Always more. When I finished, the standing ovation lasted longer than I could hold my tears back. And in that moment I knew. Madison couldn't take this from me. No one could. I had become the light. Weeks passed after the Carnegie ceremony, but the echo of that night lived in everything I did. In every letter I received from women who had finally stood up for themselves. In every photograph I took of overlooked beauty. In every quiet moment I spent not needing anyone's approval anymore. That's when I decided it was time to go back to the beginning. Not to my family's house, but to my house. The West River property. I had kept it rustic on purpose. No developers, no remodel. Just one long porch, a fireplace that crackled at night, and the view of the lake that turned gold every morning. I packed up my camera, a few essentials, and spent a week there alone. No Daniel, no press, no deadlines. Just me. And her, the girl I used to be. I imagined her sitting on the swing, feet not quite touching the ground, her medal in one hand, her parents' indifference in the other. I saw the tears she never let them see. The courage it took to keep showing up, even when no one clapped. I walked over to that girl, metaphorically in my mind, and knelt beside her. "You don't have to prove anything anymore," I whispered. "You are already enough." Cried then. Not bitter tears. Not rage. But something deeper. Release. Freedom. Forgiveness, not for them but for myself. The version of me that clung to scraps of affection. That believed love had to be earned through pain. That thought she had to become something extraordinary just to be seen. That girl deserved better. And I was finally giving it to her. 3 months later, my second book tour ended in London. Daniel met me at the airport with flowers and a quiet kiss. We stayed in a quiet flat overlooking a garden, where I wrote the final words to my third book. The light was mine all along. One afternoon I received an envelope in the mail. From Madison. It wasn't thick or dramatic. Just a single handwritten card. "Zena, I'm in therapy now. Real therapy. Not yoga with a journal or sage-burning influencers. Actual work. I don't expect anything from you. But I wanted you to know I'm learning. About who I hurt. About why I needed to destroy what I envied. You were always everything I pretended to be. Hope someday we can talk. But if not, thank you. For surviving me. Madison." I didn't reply. But I didn't throw it away either. Some things aren't meant to be undone. Just acknowledged. On the first day of spring, I hosted an event at my gallery called The Unseen Becoming Seen. It featured work by young photographers from underserved communities. Girls who, like me, had grown up feeling like shadows. I didn't speak at the start. I let them speak. One girl, maybe 16, walked up to me afterward with tears in her eyes. "Ms. Krantz," she said, clutching a print of her photo, "when I saw your story, I knew I wasn't crazy for thinking I mattered." Hugged her. Because in that moment I realized, this wasn't just revenge. It was legacy. Years from now, when people ask who Zena Krantz was, I hope they won't just say, "The artist who exposed her toxic family." I hope they'll say, "She turned pain into art. She turned silence into sound. She turned shadows into light." And for anyone still stuck in the shadows, still waiting to be seen, here's what I'll leave you with. You were never invisible. You were simply around people too blind to see beauty that didn't shine in gold. Shine anyway. Zena's story is not just about betrayal or revenge. It's about reclaiming power, identity, and self-worth. About letting go, not because someone deserved forgiveness but because healing demands it. If you've ever felt overlooked, silenced, or erased by the very people meant to love you, know this. You are not alone. And your story isn't over. Share your thoughts below. What part of Zena's journey resonated with you most? And if you haven't already, subscribe to Revenge Echoes. Because here, stories speak louder than revenge.